God, after, now here's a clause, he opens up with God, but then there's this clause, and then in verse 2, he's going to get back to his main point. But he starts off and says God, but then he says God after he had done something long ago. God spoke long ago to the fathers. How did he speak long ago to the fathers? In the prophets. Now, fathers there, and that's, again, one of those P words there in the Greek, patrosin, but the fathers there can also be translated as ancestors. And so this is why we also make the point where some see this as a reference to the Hebrews, to the Israelites, because of such phrasing like this. He spoke long ago to the fathers. Well, this is a natural reference to the Old Testament. And he spoke in the prophets in many portions and in many ways. So God has spoken. God has communicated. God has given his revelation to the ancestors, to the fathers, to, let's say, the Old Testament, the people in the Old Testament, the Jewish people. And it is through the prophets in many portions, in many ways. Now, what's the emphasis on this many portions in many ways? Because that's another one of those, coming back to those P words. Those are two P words, really, as I've said before. And the words really, just like they're translated here, in many parts, in many ways. And what he's doing is just showing you that in the past, when God communicated to his people in the Old Testament, he used the prophets, and he did that through different prophets and at different times, over hundreds of years. Some maybe even say longer than that. If you start to count, well, if we're going to say who the prophets are, because this is another, let's say, debate here. When he says prophets, is he simply referring to those like Ezekiel and Jeremiah? He communicated to them, or let's say even Daniel, or again, those that who we have their written word with us, but also could he mean people like Noah, who God also spoke to Noah, right? So God communicated to Noah. So some would say that when he's speaking here and talking about the communication through the prophet, that's to be limited to the prophets and the written word that we have, like books like Isaiah, like books like Jeremiah, and the whole Old Testament. Some would say, yes, that's fine to acknowledge that, but let's not limit when he says that God has communicated in different ways, in many ways, and again in many portions, in many ways, that does not, let's say, negate the speaking to those like Noah, that their words are still contained in the Old Testament and God communicated to them. But either way, we see the point that the writer of Hebrews is making here. He is making the point that God has indeed spoke, and he has spoke to these prophets. He has communicated his revelation.